Welcome, viewers and listeners as well, to Assiduous Dust, home of the OTSCP. I am here with the lovely groove-tastic Larissa Shmailo, and this is for Assiduous Dust, episode number 15 for season 1. I'm so glad to have Larissa Shmailo here. Larissa is such an amazing individual. Before we get started, here's a little bit about Larissa. For those of you who aren't familiar, let me pull out my cheat sheet. One second. Beep, boop, beep. Okay, now I have my cheat sheet. Larissa Shmailo is a poet, novelist, translator, editor, and writing coach. Shmailo's new novel is SLY BANG by, please forgive me if I mispronounce some of these publications, with Sputen Dyville. Okay. Her first novel is Patient Women with Blaze Vox, and her poetry collections are Medusa's Country, published with Mad Hat, and hashtag Special Characters, published with Unlikely Books, a very groovy title, I must say. In Prawn by Blaze Vox, and the chapbook A Cure for Suicide with Cerveda Barva Press, and the ebook Fib Sequence with Argusist. I am terrible at certain things. Ebooks. Did I get that right? Argutist ebooks. Argutist ebooks. A new poetry collection, Dora/Laura, is forthcoming from Salmon Poetry. Congratulations. Hopefully we'll get into some of that. And Shmailo's poetry albums are The No Net World and Exorcism, for which she won the New Century Best Spoken Word Album Award. Congratulations. And tracks are available from iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, and most digital distributors. So many. Please check that out. Shmailo's work has appeared in the anthologies A Measure for Measure, an anthology of poetic meters, published with Penguin Random House. Words for the Wedding, published with Penguin as well. Contemporary Russian Poetry, Dalkey. Resist Much / Obey Little, Poems for the Inaugural, with Spiten Dival. And Choice Words, Writers on Abortion, with Haymarket. And over 30 others, so many more, and so many more to come. I'm so excited. Shmailo is the original English language translator of the first futurist opera, Victory Over the Sun, which is performed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Garage Museum of Moscow, the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and theaters and universities worldwide. So awesome. So groovy. Shmailo also edited the anthology 21st Century Russian Poetry, which is with Big Bridge Press, and has been a translator on the Russian Bible for the Eugene A. Nida Institute for Biblical Scholarship of the American Bible Society. Her mission in life is to help mentally ill people through writing. Please, after the show, not during, but after, unless you're dying to, please check out her website at www.larissa, that's Larissashmailo.com, larissashmailo.com. I am so excited to have you here, Larissa. Please, apologies for the mispronunciation of certain press titles. Just forgive this stupid American. What's something that you haven't done regarding poetry that maybe you're looking forward to doing or you've never thought of doing? Some people have said, like, skydiving while writing a poem, which is something dangerous. I'm not sure that I'd do that. There's been a host of things. And don't say being on this podcast, that doesn't count. That's cheating.
I want to write an epic poem. I want to write an epic poem in dactylic hexameter.
That sounds very groovy, and I like that. Now, would you share with us, for those who aren't familiar with what that term particularly means? Not epic.
A dactyl is stress data, and a dactylic hexameter is what the Iliad and the Odyssey are written in.
Right.
And most epic poetry is written, and I said, a dactyl is Kamala. Okay, like Kamala Harris. Kamala is a dactyl. Kamala.
Correct.
Kamala.
Yes, and I'm so glad that we have Kamala Harris.
I'm so glad we have.
Perhaps can you maybe talk? Can you mention her? I don't know. Maybe it's something with that. I don't know. The world is full of opportunity. Absolutely. So I know.
Maybe I could get Kamala Harris to read my dactylic poem. Maybe I could write an epic poem about what's going on with Trump and all.
Absolutely, yeah. And then there'll be the movie. You know, if you're familiar with Colbert, you know, Stephen Colbert, you know, he's always asked people, it's like, you know, actors and individuals, you know, what role they would play in the movie. That's obviously going to happen. And so, you know, I think maybe you could provide some of the script.
Let's see, if we had a movie of the, no, we're talking about the movie of the epic poem, right?
Yes.
The epic poem about Trump, Donald Trump, that's an amphibrat, Donald Trump, ...
That's what he does for tweets, except when it's not done correctly. And you get things like...
So what part would I play? I would play a Washington Post reporter.
I can definitely see that. We gotta have to have that happen. Absolutely. And I know that you did work with Lit Balm Presents, and you helped to raise an enormous amount of funds for a spectacular event with many different individuals that was recently, you know, a couple months back for raising funds for the Democratic National.
We had fundraisers for the Democrats October 10th, October 17th, and October 24th, and we raised over $10,000. You know,
Yes.
we had 60 poets, a star-studded gala.
Hirschman was on there, among others.
Who was that you said?
Hirschman was among the individuals.
Who was that?
Jack Hirschman.
Jack Hirschman, I don't think he was one of them, actually.
Oh, I thought that he was.
But we had Mark Doty, we had Carolyn Forche, we had Wang Ping, that's Wang Ping was earlier. We had Kimiko Han, we had Martin Espada, we had Erica Jong and Andre Kondrescu. It was star-studded.
It wasn't just for one event. It was separated in three different.
We had three separate nights, and we had guest hosts. Tara Campbell guest hosted the first one, and Indran Amirtha Nagayam hosted the second one, and Patricia Spears Jones was the special guest host.
Oh, terrific!
For the third one.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. And so I guess that this is available for listeners or viewers to after watching this.
Check out our YouTube channel. You can find all information about our archived recordings at www.litbomb.org. www.litbomb.org, and you can check out our prior readings there. You can link you can find the link to our Zoom room, and you can find the link to all the recordings of our fundraiser and other readings there.
Absolutely. And I know that I think David Dephy, who's a friend of the show, who had a book, you know, a little bit about, I guess, about a couple months ago, that was out with Adelaide Books New York, that he did something for Lip Balm, I believe. He's a friend of the show as well, and he's a very groovy individual. So
David has come to my reading for he came to my reading for one of my readings for my novel SLY BANG, and I got to meet him in person. That was very nice. David's a friend of Mad Hat, and David's a friend of Lip Balm.
Yes, Amy, I got to have him on and for Assiduous Dust for a previous episode, and he is quite the individual and has quite the story. I've been working on myself on a manuscript with him or something that hopefully we're still looking for publishers. But back to you, I'm curious. So how did that idea happen? Because and this is a bit of a multi-part question, that, okay, we're just going to do this event. We're going to do this. However, there's so much work. I need to schedule all these different things. I'm sure that there's a few individuals helping out, trying to navigate, because this is a big effort, and also in so much time, because, I'm not sure if, what was the timeline like, as well as, these are just a few questions and you could pick or choose one. Did you ever think that you would do something like this before? And how has technology also helped with certain things for connect individuals? And have you found that it's been particularly also, I want to also get into the politics of everything, because nonprofits and different organizations, like their literary stuff, they can't really give charitable cause. They can't really donate, or they don't to campaigns directly, or there's this weird thing. And so you have to do it in a different way. If my understanding is correct, it might be completely skewed, but I want to make sure that I understand that, as there's...
All our money went to Act Blue directly.
Mm-hmm.
All our money went to Act Blue directly, to the Democrats directly. So for them to choose which races they wanted to place our money on. We were booking until the last minute. We were, people were getting excited about it. We were booking until the last minute. Say, oh, can we get Mark Doty? Can we get, let's get this poet laureate. Let's get this Pulitzer Prize winner. Let's get this. And Indran was especially helpful to us inviting a lot of people. Peter Cooley, we were booking madly.
Like, I don't have enough hands.
But so, but the politics of it is simply that we wanted to see the Democrats win, and we did see them win.
Yeah.
And we're proud. I did a fundraiser. I did a fundraiser live, at the Cornelius Street Cafe in 2018.
Which is no longer, which is closed.
Which is closed, but I did a reading there with Patricia Spears-Jones, Rachel Haddis, Elaine Equi, Maggie Balistreri, and Trace Peterson. We did a fundraiser, all-star women poets read for the Democrats. And I knew I wanted to do something for the general election. I did something for the midterm live, and Zoom, of course, was extremely helpful in terms of our getting national poets. In other words, we were able to get California. You can
get widespread, you can get coverage, much.
We had people Zooming in from Paris. We had people Zooming in from Europe. We had people in previous readings at Litbom. We've had people Zoom in from St. Petersburg, Russia, from Singapore. So Zoom has been remarkable in terms of an international reach for the reading.
Yeah, it really has. It's you know, it's great that you know, I can have this with you now because of partially because of Zoom. Oh no, is that an advertisement for Zoom? I think I need to do a little checkbox thing or something for that. Hopefully not. Maybe we should get paid. I don't know. That's a joke. I'm just joshing as I am Joshua. My gosh. So what I'm wondering is, let's go back. You know, rewind. Where do you ever see yourself putting on, let's say 30 years ago or 20, 30 years ago, did you ever see yourself putting on this type of event or certain things? How did you find yourself getting into, you know, of course, there's a certain way that we meet people and we find different paths. So I wonder if you would share to us with a few, maybe like paint a picture of one or two different pinnacle points in your life that brought you, you know, towards your career path that you, as an accomplished writer, performer, just of so much. What if you could share it with us, a few instances, and perhaps keep the focus on a mindset of being of service, because we get to be of service for other individuals so that they can follow in our footsteps, so that the, you know, words can go out there, so that people aren't locked up with a key of like, I'm going to remain silent. I'm not going to put my stuff out there.
30 years ago, I didn't think of myself as a poet at all. I had not discovered poetry. I had maybe 6 or 12 poems that I had written in college. I know a friend of mine liked them and put them in a binder for me, but I didn't consider myself a poet until I found out when I was 36, I found out that in New York City, there were these—
So that's about 5 years ago, right?
30. Thank you, my friend.
Okay.
But I found out that you could read your poetry anywhere at an open mic, and they were all over the city. And I went to one, and I was so warmly received by the listeners there, the other poets. You know, someone told me, you have the forearms of a poet.
I don't know what that means. The forearms?
I don't know still what that means, but you know, it takes a poet to come up. It takes a poet to come up
and say,
you have the forearms of a poet, he said, and I became a poet, and I began writing, and I began hosting, and I began hosting a series called Sliding Scale Poetry in the East Village and the West Village. From there, moving to service was very easy. We would do fundraisers for different organizations with poetry. I did one for Girls Right Now, which is an organization that mentors young women to teach them to write. We did it for the Poetry Calendar, and for the St. John's Bread and Life Soup Kitchen. And so fundraisers have always been a part of my poetic journey.
Absolutely. And especially, you know, I think it's important for me, you know, I had my, you know, I'm, you know, a newly poet or whatnot, and I didn't know, I had a professor actually, so I graduated a bit ago in 2019, and I had a professor who was, I took for creative writing, and he had recommended I submit a poem. And then I got involved doing something to kind of honor my grandpa who was passing away and wanted to get stuff some of my work out there. I always wanted to. It's like, let me try to put something together. And then I realized for me, okay, you know, this thing kind of focused on as a recovering addict and as someone who's on the spectrum with autism. I find that, okay, so work centered around that. I think that it's important that advocacy or some type of form, you know, some type of advocacy is important. And you also find in poetry that in different movements, you always find like movements, protests, different things. There's a poet somewhere, that there's somebody doing something. It becomes a way to spread a message, that there's something universal.
You know, my big thing is, of course, I am a person with bipolar disorder. I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Yeah.
I'm certainly a survivor of trauma. My first husband drowned.
I'm 5 years, so 5 years sober.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad. That's congratulations. Yeah. That's wonderful. So, you know, my mission and my advocacy goes towards people with mental illness, who have been affected by trauma, or are affected by addiction. That's my current project, is all about that. I'm running workshops for something called Writing Resilience, which, you know, telling your story is empowering. Slave narratives show that. The Me Too.
Absolutely.
The Me Too movement shows how telling, and in the anonymous programs, people tell their stories as
experience, strength, and hope. And that's a methodology for which to voice through poetry, through arts. There's different things. It gives a guidebook, so to speak. I find for me personally, and that's, you know, if I might share, that I've done some stuff of the Miracle Project, an organization of an autism nonprofit, and you know, okay, let me try to gather some individuals, because the autistic addict community is something I've known people that have thought, you know, just not because I don't think they're being malicious or whatnot, there's just a not understanding. Oh, wait, you could be an addict if you're autistic? I thought it's something that, it's like, yes, it's a spectrum disorder, and yes, you can. By definition, autism spectrum disorder is a spectrum disorder, and also that shouldn't play a role. And so, you know, I found some people who are different poets or certain things, and it's like, wow, this is something to build. You can use this through the gifts that you've been gifted, and you can develop them, and you could to be of service. And I
exactly.
think exactly like what you're doing. Would you happen to have one of your pieces, would you share something? Do you have something about, you know, bipolar?
I do, and I'll read it to you now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is called Mad Woman, and it's a prose poem. Here I am again, walking among these vague and tepid people. They evoke a slight feeling of distaste in me. They smell my pain. They have no idea. I just hold my phone, the cellular phone I use for a disguise, and I talk to the ultimate answering service. I walk and I talk to God. When you died, I ripped the electrodes out of my skull and ran away from the land of cables and TV sets. Great battles of television were fought here. Great battles were lost. Soho is no different from uptown or downtown. It's all money and talking and bars, sex and cars, job, job, job. So I went to see the trees. The trees were beautiful, the leaves forming patterns of light on the ground, and as the light played on my hair and my cheeks, I realized no one ever dies, they just become trees. Even Marilyn Monroe was alive in a leaf. I saw for an instant your face, all a quiver in the shaking of a fern, in the light of the wind, and I kissed the trees, so I knew you were not dead, not really. You would not be so cruel as to die, really die. Under the West Side Highway, I met all the men who lived there and one girl. She was 22 and pregnant and had AIDS. I didn't stay long, but I stayed long enough. Under the West Side Highway, I slept with Jesus in a cap, talked madman Spanish with Tito and the dirty apostles. I knew there would always be enough loaves and fishes for me, knew that no matter how hard it got, I would always be safe and held near, close to God. It was my destiny to be greatly loved. I chose then to be close to God, to throw away my clothing and be close to God. There were times when not even a shirt came between me and God. Under the West Side Highway, I spoke to Jesus, his face always changing. Now Alex, who lived in a tent near the wall, now Panama drinking wine, now Juan in his tin and cardboard hut. You followed me, watched me, you were worried, how would I get home and back to the life I had known? And I said, look who's talking, you died after all. It's hardly for you to criticize me if I go off the beaten path a little too. And as for the others, they worried too, unknown to them, the protection that I had and had always had. I said to them, oh, don't worry, I will love you, pray you home. Look, can't you see? I am your guardian angel, and you thought I was just homeless and mad, as though God hadn't made the whole world just for me. Well, now I am cured. I go to the bank, I take pills, I sit in restaurants, have a job. I worry about money and whether my new boyfriend has AIDS. We don't even have sex. He's too busy with his jobs. It's just as well. None of these men have anything that would compel you or keep you through the night. It's just banging bones after all. You see, very few men have souls and very few men have courage. The few who have the courage to follow their souls are mostly all dead, lost in leaves. People kill them, you know. I don't know anymore. I take pills and talk into the cellular phone. Sometimes I think I hear your voice. Sometimes I think I hear you. And then, no, it's just the pills. I get a hum in my ear. It's not you. I know you are not dead, but you are not here either, and I miss you. I am cured, so they say, but you can't really ever take the gift of madness away. Once you have been stripped by God of everything, clothing, family, freedom, senses, you are his for life, and I was stripped, oh yes, dear Lord, of everything. Every last thing. God took everything, leaving only my soul, but I found that was enough. And you people think you have things, but really the next breath you take is the only thing you have. So how different are you from me? Look at us again, we the homeless, and see us for who we are, the archangels of God. You cannot take the gift of madness away. I will always know about trees, will always see the arch of my lover's neck and the patterns of their light. I will know the patch of sky between the birch tree and the willow is him, his azure face, and I will always hear the voice of God wherever I go. No pill can block him out. No TV set can drown his voice. No fool can block the face of God from me. Look at me, mad woman. I am Magdalene. I am Joan of Arc. I'm Saint Marilyn Monroe, and I will always be your angel, baby. I will always be your saint. Pray to me. Thank you.
Oh, snap, 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 clap, clap, clap. Round of applause. That's what we do here, by the way. Yeah. I have to say, Larissa, that I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I've had it a few times. There's this feeling like you feel almost like you're like, I call it like Yoda, where it's like there's a bit of Satori where you're like 3 inches off the ground or like half an inch off the ground. And that poem put me into that feeling, I have to say. And I constantly had to look back at the camera and see, wait, am I actually levitating slightly?
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you very much, Joshua.
That's what a good poem should do. It should evoke something within you. And I find that, you talk about homelessness, of your experiences, and also this, the vibrant colors. And you say something about of madness, that the gift of, it's a gift. What was the particular line? It was,
You cannot take the gift of madness away. I will always know about trees.
yes. And so that's the thing. You'll always have your experiences of different things. And also it's who you, there's that, and it's very powerful. I find that line really stands out, as well as, you know, who are you, you know, and talking about, you know, it's just this breath. And it's kind of also looking at of the now and the spontaneity of things rather than getting bogged down in the minutia of things. I find that, you know, it's not just being numbed completely. That's the thing. And it's not just, oh, let me go to the highest high of that, all that feeling. It's a bit of in between. And that's where, and that's where it's that's a challenge to get to. That's that special place. And so I wonder, you know, what eventually, I'm sure that there's, you know, for me, you know, it's like, wait, I can write about this, I can share this, I can have this published, really? You know, was there a certain time for you? Because I'm sure it's not like naturally like that you're so freely, I'm able to share this stuff. Or have it out there in the world. Was there something that led up to you to do that? Like a particular, maybe there are some individuals that help guide you or show you, yeah, no, you're allowed to do this. You can do this. It's okay.
I read James Joyce. I read James Joyce, and I said, "You're allowed to do that. You're allowed to write that way. You're allowed to write that way. You're allowed to do that. I want to do that too. I want to write that way too. I want to, you know." But you know, everybody, when I first came onto the open mic scene in New York City, everyone was so encouraging. I had a friend, Robert Dunn. He's passed since. He was a curator for an organization called Poet to Poet, and he would feature me at the Barnes and Noble. I mean, say, who am I? Oh my goodness, they're featuring me at the Barnes and Noble, and they want to publish my poetry. And he published my poetry, and he mentored me, and he was a remarkable individual, and wrote 4,000 poems himself. And so there are many people along the way.
Sure it's much more than that, because it's also, there's all this other stuff that didn't go out there, or, you know, of course, because, I don't know, you don't always publish every single thing you have, or you can, of course, especially it's like, I want to be able to, but I can't yet, you know, how there is of collections and certain things. You know, so it's probably much more than 4,000 if you think about it. So I'm curious. So I know also that you got, you know, so for individuals there's always this kind of, there could even be still, I guess there could be this imposter syndrome thing that kind of comes up, and that can be something. And does that ever come up from time to time for you?
With my friend, as a translator, I very often have imposter syndrome as a translator, and you know, like I recently was presenting my translations at Columbia University's Harriman Institute, and again I was sort of saying, I'm here among all these other translators, you know, all these world famous professors. I don't have an advanced degree. So I'm especially awed by the PhDs, and here I am ranked among them as a translator. So I very often have
someone pitched me, or you know,
it's like I'm here, I'm really here.
And that's the thing also, and that's a similar thing is also I find for me, like, you know, you could go into the whole ego thing or whatnot of like, oh, I need recognition or validation. Is that another way of looking at the breath? Oh, you know, remember, it's only your breath. And so in a way, in the poem also, I guess looking back, maybe this is my analysis, that you're also can be referring to yourself now of certain things, of certain instances to keep you grounded in that middle, not too high, not too low, but that middle. And that's what the poem is saying for you.
Well, the thing is that external validation, if you live for external validation, that leads nowhere. You're forever bereft. You're forever not, somebody else gets more validation than you, and you compare and despair and say, oh, but I'm not getting
Write this down, forever bereft, for a title for a collection of things. Write that down. That'd be
forever bereft. Forever.
Like, make sure, write that. That would be a great collection, honestly.
But seriously, outside, after I've been writing long enough to know that it's the work, it's the actual writing of the work and sharing it with people who understand it and like it, that's the important thing, is to say external validation is nice if it comes with prize money. I mean, that's nice.
It's like be able to pay bills and stuff and things and whatnot, yeah.
Yeah, so.
And that's, again, I want to talk about, I know that also you have, numerous organizations that you founded or are part of, that you have also, that you started the, what is it? You co-founded, I think, co-founded, how? Humanities, what is it? Humanities Opposition World League. And you kind of got into that was, I guess, so that's, we're skipping. That was further along, I guess.
That was a direct response to Trump's election, and I was thinking simply that this is the time that we have to go to work. We poets and writers, this is the time when we have to raise consciousness and elevate and teach and educate, and basically this is the time. Toni Morrison said that, Morrison said that these are the times, in times of oppression, these are the times when writers go to work. And so I had a manifesto which was signed by, a number of leading artists, and we basically declared our opposition to Trumpism and our commitment to kindness, knowledge of all kinds.
The values of poets, and that's what I've found, that it's weird. It's like if you had like the Senate was just all poets, I feel like it would be really great. Isn't there some like quotes of something to like, it's like first, get rid of the poets and then it's get rid of the lawyers. There's something, maybe it's Plato or something, somebody, I'm not sure.
Well, the only quote that comes to mind is Shelley's, "Poets are the unseen legislators of the world." But there is the thing that, they got rid of the Jews, and I said nothing. Then they came for me. There was no one left to for me.
Yeah, and that's something. And so to oppose that, and again, and this is something that there are individuals. I think I'm kind of the belief of the poet laureate of Los Angeles, of Luis J. Rodriguez, and he had said in something, quoted this often, he had said about how, really, that, I'm paraphrasing here, that a poem is political in its inherent nature, something along those lines, that you can't escape the political, that it's as a vehicle, that what it does. So yes, of course, all poetry is political. And I think that's something that we get to do. And so it's interesting, especially that, you have somebody that then tries to silence pretty much anyone, and even with, individuals press, individuals for writers. And it's something that, how did we get here?
yes, how did we get here indeed? Even though Biden has won the election.
Well, it's shown something,
Or even though Biden has won the election, 70 million people voted for Trump. And our task in the next 4 years is going to be to reach those people,
right,
and see if we can bring them back into the fold of rational.
And honoring one's breath.
What's that?
Of honoring the breath.
Of honoring the breath. That sounds reasonable.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. So I'm curious also about how you got in, because I know that you're you have a very lovely voice, not just for performing, but also singing as well. And you've done you did a futurist opera, right? That you did a futurist.
Opera is a funny term for it. It was actually the world's first performance piece. It was a linguistic experiment that tried to get rid of all sense, all semantics.
It created a new.
So it was an avant-garde piece that was meant to épater le bourgeois and as I say, break any rule that possibly existed. And that's what the futurists were about. And so when they say opera, that's in quotes. Opera is definitely in quotes.
Mm.
The music was by Matushin. There was music to it at its performances, and the libretto was by Alexei Kruchonik, and nobody told me. I was young when I did the translation, and nobody told me that this was untranslatable, that he had made nonsense syllables through half the work were nonsense syllables that would connote something, that would evoke an idea, but they were nonsense syllables. And so I didn't, nobody told me it was untranslatable, so I went ahead and translated it.
Right. Yeah, are you familiar with, this just comes to mind for some reason, with Douglas Hofstadter, Gödel Escher Bach?
No.
He is this giant book, and he ended up, basically doing the typeset. I don't know why it comes to mind, but he did the typeset and all this stuff. And he studied physics and all these things and in math and some stuff. And then he's just left it, and he wrote this giant book of talking about, really it's about consciousness. And it's this big giant thing with all these different little, I guess they're vignettes that tie each other, like Achilles versus the tortoise and all these different things and weird stuff. But then it was translated in many different languages, and there's pictures in it and all this stuff. And it's really an attempt to take out a closed loop of this thing, of this kind of mathematical thing, and relate it back to consciousness and how, particularly of, I think, self-consciousness, of metacognition. Anywho, I had studied some of this kind of stuff earlier in different ways, but he does all these different translations. And so he had to do the translation of this giant 720 whatever page giant thing himself, because also you take out into different languages, okay, these things of these references and little puns and things, wow, this needs to be different. I can't use this regular translation or whatnot, because I need to have these get across. And so there are certain things this actually doesn't translate. So I'm going to have something that completely, if then you went back and translated it back to English, it's new material. It's something that's not in the original because it's untranslatable. So in fact, I'm going to invent something that's a special thing for, let's say, the French version or the German version that isn't at all in your English version.
There you go. I love translating, that kind of incredibly original translating.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's something, but you really only need to read the introduction to get it, of the anniversary 20th or something anniversary edition. It's a great book. That's honestly all I've really accomplished. It's something. So regarding translating, how did you you found yourself get into that? Were you kind of thrown into translating? How did that happen? Was it intuitive? Somebody said, you should take a look at this author,
Actually, I was an undergrad at Barnard. I was an undergrad at Barnard, and a graduate student was doing research on the Russian avant-garde. The period, the very fertile period of Russian literature in the 19 teens, between 1910 and the revolution, the early pre-revolutionary period. And she needed a monograph about the artist Rodchenko, translated. So I did that. And then when and through her, I was then commissioned by the Los Angeles County Museum of Art to translate Victory Over the Sun. So I was pretty much thrown into it, That was my first major translation.
Absolutely. And I also want to say that, would you please do like an honor of having a good translation? I feel like, I don't know if you noticed this, but of nausea, there is no, that's something, if you can find someone, I know that's not Russian, but there's...
You mean Camus' nausea?
Yeah. There isn't...
There isn't a good translation of the French?
Not as an audiobook. I don't think there is any as an audiobook available version of a translation, in fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I believe. I've spent many hours of stubbornly searching for that. And that's the thing. And sometimes we have our perseverance and persistence to a certain degree can kind of help aid us in different ways. And I find, do you find yourself ever, what happens when you get stuck in a rut? Do you go for a walk? What do you do when you're stuck with translating, or do you ask for guidance? I'm sure there's tons of research that's also involved. Tell us a bit about, for those who aren't familiar, about what's that process look for you? Has there been a routine, particularly, let's say, for translation, that you formulated over the years?
Basically, just dive immediately into the text and do as close a literal translation as I possibly can. And from there, from the literal translation, work to incorporate any sound values that the original had, try to mimic them in the target language, and also the form of it. In other words, if it's a Brodsky poem, it's essential that you do the form. Brodsky himself translated his own poetry because he had to have the form. In other words, that was essential to him.
Yeah, so it is essential, and I'm of the belief that that there has to be this type of correspondence that's essential, and without it, you're changing the piece.
Yeah.
That there's a one-to-one correspondence, a bijection in mathematics, it's called, to say a weird term. And so I wonder for you that, how would you say, because you've also done a translation, with for the Institute for Biblical Scholarship of the American Bible Society. So how did you kind of get involved of that? So, because I know also much of your work is you have a strong background with of looking at Russian literature for translation. It also informs your poetry, not just in terms of, but also it informs, let's say, certain the avant-garde, style.
This was the work that I did for the Edward A. Nida Institute of the American Bible Society was mostly surrounding the Russian Bible, which is an incredible serpentine trail of translation. With the version most commonly used in the 18th and 19th and early 20th century being a translation of the Vulgate from the Latin, which itself was a translation of a translation of a translation. So I started translating articles about the Russian Bible, and then I was given an assignment to translate a huge bibliography of the Russian Bible, of versions that were published in the Soviet, in the Russian Empire, which at times included Finland and the Baltic states. So it was a bibliography of all existing Russian Bibles and in various languages.
That must have been something that was
that was a historical challenge. I had to learn a lot of history for that.
So would you say that, was there certain also libraries or different things that you'd go to, or it's like, that you'd be like, yep, I'm going to get there early when the library opens, or there, tell us about, a day in your life.
I used to love to go to the Slavic wing of the Lion Library, the main library in New York, but the Slavic wing, due to cuts in the library, the Slavic wing has been incorporated into an Eastern and a European wing, so it doesn't even exist, the library.
So would you paint us a picture of kind of, a narrative of how did it look? Certain things, thoughts, just a certain memory you have.
I remember also Low Library and Butler Library at Columbia University, where I would go to the stacks to look for writing from 1910, and I would take out manuscripts that would actually crumble in my hand. They were so old. They would crumble in my hand.
Things also, right?
What?
There's special things you have to clean your hands, make sure you even have gloves or certain things, and there's somebody there for special collections also.
At the time, no. Now,
yeah.
Now I would imagine, yes, there would be special gloves and the rest. But as I said, there were manuscripts that crumbled in my hand. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I guess it's also awesome and awful in the sense of full of awe as well. And so I'm curious, do you have a piece about, do you have any poetry regarding your experience translating as a reflection, or as being part of going to some particular places such as that aren't as they were, that are no longer have been consumed?
The only poem I can think of that I will read you, Memento Mama, which is a poem. My mother occasionally would help me with my translations.
Mm-hmm.
And this poem is called Memento Mama. I haven't passed that dream of wisdom, the borders you cross through. I can't translate the language I thought I knew. I see a meaning watching you die, hold it in my hands like a graying sigh. This lock of hair which I comb and tie, I kiss the head which hears my no, and meet your eyes and say, don't go, and leave you to this tongue of dread, This is me, it cries. This is me, and I die. We will all speak these words in this way. And then, until then, what shall I say?
I don't know. What is there to say?
What is there to say? Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. And that kind of relates back with the breath also. You know, what is it that you take with you? And also of externalities. And, you know, what are you going to do while you're here in this world? How are you going to be help? Or how are you going to help? How are you going to be of service? And the connections that I guess we meet along the way of our individuals and these little kismet kind of God-shotty kind of experiences that we get to have. And I'm curious of, you know, particularly because I also want to get to your to talk a bit about your forthcoming collection that is forthcoming, and I want to make sure we get to that. You know, what do you find? So tell me a bit about that, about Dora Laura. You know,
Dora Laura has a 20-page long poem about the collectivization of the Ukraine in the 1930s, Stalin's collectivization of the Ukraine, and of the experience of Ukrainians during the Holocaust. This is what is the poems are political and personal, and in my case, the personal is always political. But the centerpiece of the book is this 20-page long poem, which centers on my family's experience.
Oh, wow. So did you do looking at family history and certain things and saying, okay, because I know for me, some of my family, there are people that you can't find the family history, like it stops, that because they're gone. They're no longer there anymore.
I collected my family's history while my mother and father were still alive. You know, I wish I had pumped my grandmother full of, you know, who saw the revolution, the Russian Revolution. You know, I wish I had pumped her for information, but I would sit with my mother trying to, my parents were interned in the concentration camp Dora Nordhausen, and she was a survivor of that. And so getting a narrative from her that was linear was very difficult. She would speak from traumatic memory, which was episodic and not chronological. So getting a chronology was something that was a challenge, but I finally did that, and that's what Dora Laura is a product of. It's the chronology of their experiences during the collectivization, the Holodomor, where millions of Ukrainians died of starvation, of some of the Ukrainians' collaboration with Hitler. And the poem is historical, viewed through the lens of my family's experience. And it follows my family from the Ukraine through Poland as they marched with the German army, with the retreating German army, back through Poland and Germany, and finally through staging camps at Kalinivka, Peremyshel, Erfurt, and then finally at Dora Nordhausen.
And so this has been something that you've been working on for quite a while, for some time now. And and when did this project originate? I'm sure you had an idea, I want to do this, but you didn't really start putting it together and really going all in. So tell us.
Well, the first time I got a chronology, I wrote the poem How My Family Survived the Camps. But I wanted to go deeper than what was presented in that poem. And so I spoke with my mother, who is still alive, to get more information, and with other family members, and my uncle and my aunt, my godmother, and it mostly took up my attention most of 2014 and 2015.
Yeah, and so I wonder, I think that it's also important that, did you have any soul searching as well of yourself, or have any realizations of yourself as you're digging this up, that perhaps experiences, say, of gratitude? I know for me, like, I can reflect on different things, or of seeing, wow, the world is so different in so many ways, and yet there are certain ways that are, things go back. I know David Dephy was a friend of the show who's been on, and he talked about of what was going on with being Georgia being invaded, of in 08 and all that, and all that going on from of Putin and Russia coming in, and certain things, and talked about. I wonder also if you had any experiences particularly related to where you visualized certain things when you're doing this, like, wow, I can see this, and wow, I don't know, where you felt particularly emotionally, that you were, something came out internal to you, either some truth or something, some type of felt, unique thing that's hard to express into words. You know what I mean? One of those experiences.
Technically, my parents collaborated. In other words, they chose to leave the Ukraine with the German army. When the chose is a difficult word, because Stalin was persecuting them, and people were being shot all over the place. And so what they did for survival, I went through a process of confusion over that, and finally ended in a spirit of great forgiveness and great realization that I could not understand their experience. That I in the poem Doralora, there comes a point where we come to the Nordhausen gates, and I stop and I say, I can't go in there because I don't know what happened there. I cannot tell you. What were those gates like? I can't even tell you what the gates looked like. How can I judge their experience in the camps? How can I judge it? How can I know it? This is as far as I go. And I thank you, my parents, for my life. And I thank you, my grandparents, for rearing me. It was powerful.
Yeah, and that's, honestly, that's what we need. We need to be able to honor the breath. We need to be able to have that of, that there are experiences that I can't relate, that I can't share for others. And to be able to acknowledge that, not try to appropriate something, I think it's really a message for a better foundation for life, for living. And so I do want to, but I would like to appropriate some internet void defamiliarization, and here's a random candle that I have for some reason that's fake, and I would like to do that with you using the page and become the Godfather apocalypse of Strangeglove, that is the Redux Odyssey. No, I'm literally reading posters I see in front of me. That is the Assiduous Dust OTSCP on the Spotlight album. I told you it was going to be corny and long, and you would know what's going on. And did it live up to that, the intro?
It did, and I'm looking forward to it. I have my books out.
Yes.
I have my books.
Yes, would you share the authors' names, the titles, and the page numbers of the books that you have out with us?
Erica John, Fear of Flying, pages 170 and 171. Infinite Jest.
Nice.
By David Foster Wallace, pages 240 and 241. And screenplay, Writing the Picture, by Robin U. Russin and William Missouri Downs. It's a how-to book for screenwriting, and that's out too.
Okie dokie. Those are the three you used that you're going to be using?
Those are the three I'm going to be using. Yes. Okay.
I have Tolstoy's short fiction, and who's the translator?
Oh my God! Does it have his Caucasian, his Caucasus stories in there?
Yeah, I read it in English. I had a teacher, Bill Webb, and English in 10th grade, and we were assigned reading of some of this stuff, and I ended up reading all of this, and I love this so much.
I love Tolstoy's short fiction. I love it.
I haven't read all of. I listened to audio book of War and Peace, and I constantly said I'm going to read it, and yeah, but I think his short fiction stuff is great. So this is it's Katz's revised translation. So it's Michael Katz. Yeah, and so I have it. I have it out to the Kreutzer Sonata, pages 148 and 149.
Oh, the Kreutzer Sonata, the sexual.
Yes, and it's specifically at 7 and 8, particularly that's. Then I have Leaves of Grass of whoever that guy is, Walt Whitman. Never heard of
that guy. Yeah.
I have
who transformed all atrocity for us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I have that too. It's out to so it's the last half of On the Beach at Night. So that's page 210. And then it goes also on page 210 is The World Below the Brine and On the Beach at Night Alone. And then the very beginning of Song for All Seas and for all seas, all ships. So that's part one of that. So that's 210 and 211. And then I have out Sylvia Plath's Ariel, the restored edition, the restored text. And I have that out to pages 50 and 51. And on 50, I have it. So this is Berkpleg. And so this is particularly, so it's part 2 and 3 of that. Okay, so you know the name of the game. Would you like to begin the process? Would you start?
Okay, yes. All right. The dumpy, frumpy stranger typefaces your computer can do.
Did working in spheres, ungrown moons, aluminum faults, snap arranged like Home Alone.
Do two men revealing sandy, white, gritty stuff where each character is described, never done?
People differ as a slave, the valve of sight, breathing silently in the golden child hand, glittering eye pool opens salt blowing beings who exist
The Rathaus of Vienna, memorable because it provided the Leisure Time Ice Company, a disclosed monastery. The combined St. John's Seminary used plain white 8.5 by 11-inch 3-hole punch papers, no colors.
Painting the origin of circumstances, closed inanimate tears, another gold turf, white bursting boot, a dead swallowed father, people devour.
They left marks, a ghastly old pre-Carter thing saying, "It is never correct for a speck."
Of our safety, of our universes and barbarism's barnacles, hooks of a smile, hooks alone, our highest choosing, invented by ungrown whisper.
I knew I would have to pay for it later. Universal Bleacher Co., the Providence Nursing Home, Schuckle missed medical pressure systems. Anywhere in sight, binding is simple.
It interlocks patient. It interlocks the stars with perfumes ripe with marriage and troika joking future.
They had been starving in Biafra, knelt vomiting over the lip of the cool blue rub, had something wrong with it.
Loads of alive, torments home, closed by change, kisses silvery gold, pale gold crutches, a dead room. This is my eye, white, immortal.
A bath together, socks oddly wet. Don't want to pay extra salaries.
For their aims, dress 1,000 forms, a song below victorious moons shine, and shine my whisper after hooks in man, arranged by olden maidens who nobody work.
Good measure, locate the defaced. Font should be also.
Burial, air, languages, processes of fishes caught me like a pound of condition ride, rupting society. And will my child of weeps and glittering have crystal's mercy unstick like planets.
Two men sounding unwell. Covers are optional.
Gluten. So different. The turtle of night. The inner nobody. Her parents combined.
A trail, sort of stereophonic. Final draft, splashed water.
Ocean spray of air. Don't prove me.
Add up. Commands seem like magic. Sausages look. Lady Mayor of Vienna.
An apparition shall again whisper the future. Breakwater.
Unparalleled, somber. Special cover, pretty tight, appreciated.
With amorous passion.
Soaped, precipice, to appear problematic, several sedate old analysts.
I think that's a good ending. Yeah, I think that's a good ending. I think that was a masterpiece or a masterpiece. I don't know. I think that was good. I like that. So thank you so much, and I will type that up and share with you. And thank you so much, Larissa Shmailo. Okay, round of applause, I guess. Yeah. Larissa, would you share with us any last final words before you go into the good night of the internet void?
Love and poetry, and save our democracy.
You got it. And also, any are you on Instagram, Twitter?
I am. Follow me.
Your website. Yeah.
My website is www.larissashmailo.com. I'm on Wikipedia. If you want to look me up, I'm on Wikipedia. I'm Larissa Shmailo on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook as Larissa Shmailo. My fan page is Larissa Shmailo Poetry and Prose, which you can join, and see me on Lit Bomb after the holidays, after the Thanksgiving holiday at Lit Bomb, and check out Lit Bomb at www.litbomb.org.
Terrific, terrific. Well, thank you so much, Larissa. Again, my honor, and let's wave goodbye for goodbye, everyone.